Okay, this begins our post-Week 5 podcast. If you're on YouTube, which most of you are, you see FlyQuest being in first. But there's streaks. This was a week of streaks. So Golden Guardians being tied for third at 7-4 after being tied for 10th at 0-4.
That's insane.
Just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they had really difficult opponents this week as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up is like this was the moment they wanted, right? They really, every time we talked to these players, they were like, we want the do-over of facing the top teams so people will start to take us seriously. Because previously it was like, oh, they faced all the top teams when they were 0-4. Is that better? Is that worse? And then they were able to go on their win streak after that. So I think this is a massive like momentum shift for them.
Yeah, and it's like the fans and us as analysts realigning with what their goals are. Because it's always crazy when you're going on a 0-4, but you say, we don't want to create excuses for our losses with Gory not being here, and that we want to win, like everyone says we want to be LCS champions, right? And our goal is the top, but you're like, we don't see the same things you guys do. And then Gory comes in, they look amazing with Gory, obviously, and they just find this insane streak where it is challenging a lot of our preconceived notions of, yes, Golden Guardians throughout its history being a successful organization, but also just this year starting out 0-4, setting basically an idea. So that to me is crazy that we have to reset our thoughts this way into the split.
I mean, this was a really exciting split because we're like, oh, so many people could actually win the championship this time. And we listed a bunch of teams and none of them were Golden Guardians. And so it's cool now to be like, they're actually dark horses for the championship. They just beat the number 2 and number 3 team this week in C9 and EG. They did it pretty convincingly. It wasn't like the enemy team's burger flipped it away from them. Like they were contending the entire early games, actually continue to have great early games. And now they have a number of players as we started doing our All-Pros this week where we're like, we submitted these at the start of the week, but at the end of the week, we probably would put some more Golden Guardians members into like River, potentially best jungler, Gory, maybe breaking into best mid. You know, Stixay is up there in top 380 carries. It's really impressive.
Yeah, this Golden Guardians team feels different to me than other surprise teams of the past.
Like CLG last summer?
Yeah, maybe CLG last summer. Actually, even FlyQuest last, I think it might have been spring. When they won a bunch of games with Afromu Takui roster with Jose Diodo, and it just didn't feel real to me. There's been so many teams like this, like Clutch, I'd almost say, from like 2018.
Even though they made Worlds?
Yeah.
No, not that Clutch.
No, that's 2019.
That was 2019.
Yeah, 2019 Clutch. That was the Huni Clutch. I'm talking about the like, I think it was like a solo
the line clutch.
Cody Sun
we
clutch.
joked, we called them the line.
Yeah, exactly. And they were like 8-3 or something, and they were in third place, and you're like, you better take us seriously.
And we're like, no.
Yeah, it's because I'm thinking about the resume of the players that are actually on Golden Guardians, and it is, if these players are able to reach the form that they've hit previously even, they're a very good team, right? River was such a dominant player with Worlds experience previously to joining Golden Guardians. Stixay, we memed the interviews earlier in the show, but he had MSI performance like 6 or 7 years ago. Actually seems like he's close back to that level. Who he's made 3 straight LCS finals as a support. And he's a great leader. And I think you can even see 100 Thieves is possibly even less organized than they would have been last year despite all the acquisitions they made. And it's looking more like the Golden Guardians team. Like all these guys are looking more legit and have the resumes. So there's actually not a big reason not to believe that this team can do well, other than the fact that none of us saw it 5 weeks ago.
Yeah. I also think like none of us saw it because there were so many other larger signings, right? Because like you think of Gory coming in, right? And he had a shaky LPL season, but then when he was in PCS, he did really well. Way previously, he was hyped as a T1 trainee. So like, I mean, that was before his start, but like, it's really cool that all of these players coming together, we now get to talk about their stories because I think every single player has a very interesting road to get here. And to your point, so much more experience than I think we gave this roster credit for initially.
Yeah, and Stixay for me is the one that is the craziest one because we've seen so many players that go through a similar cycle of you hit a peak that not a lot of players get to have. They then, of course, go through a lot of misfortune. And in his case, was a coach. Like, he was going to be put in a position where he's like a player coach. And it seemed like effectively was done with competitive, which is crazy. And then actually has an insane time in academy with Chime, and then moves up and he reignites. He says it. He reignites his passion for playing League of Legends, like, or at least playing competitively. And so for him to find that love for the game, come back in, stick with it, and then now have really strong laning phases with Huhi, somebody he's worked with in the past, is something I would never see. Doesn't matter how many times it's happened. It's like,
yeah. Did you have one more point on this?
No, I
have one more point. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I do worry, maybe even, we're giving them a ton of credit now.
Yeah.
Reddit's giving them a ton of credit now. I've definitely seen this pattern before where a team, like, pats themselves on the back, takes a deep breath, and then loses their edge. Possibly even FlyQuest might still be undefeated if people didn't start asking them questions about how they're going to get enough practice for international competition before they lose to TSM. I even saw some of their coaches tweeting last night, like, are we for real yet? It's like, unanimously, everyone's going to say yes now. Now can you take it the next step? Because I think there's a difficult letdown that they need to guard against now that they've basically gotten people to say they're good.
Especially with a catch-up effect. Like, FlyQuest experienced it, but there's going to be teams that have the players that can do it. Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, know they went up against each other. They have great players. And they will, at some point in this split, figure themselves out and will be competitive with you. So learning when you are unreasonably far behind is actually quite easy because you're learning off of other teams. You're figuring out how to work with each other. Whereas if you're now figuring, like, if you're Golden Guardians in this case, but mostly, like, I guess more so to FlyQuest, you're, like, at the top. You're like, how far can we go when we're still doing really well in scrims? We feel like we're great. So, yes, that pressure of improvement isn't there necessarily, or at least maybe it still is right now, but if they continue that success, then they might lose their edge.
Speaking of other streaks, two ended.
Okay.
Golden Guardians continued, but 100 Thieves and Dignitas both broke their loss streaks.
Hey! Everybody's a winner.
Dignitas will see how much they can continue to win from here. But at least for 100 Thieves, I interviewed Bjergsen after the game, and you could just tell that this was, like, getting to them. You know, like, he was like, it was intense recently. And he was like, it's kind of good, you know, that we all take it so seriously. But also, you know, it's kind of like, you could tell that it was a big, like, thank God we finally broke it. And, like, hopefully, like, maybe there's, like, a little bit of a mental concern that was, like, living in the back of their minds about the loss streak when you have Doublelift coming out of retirement. You know you have all this talent around you, but you just aren't winning games. And he said that they were maybe being a little bit too inactive. They weren't getting to team fights. They were like, we know we're great team fighters, but we just keep getting there, like, so much gold down that it doesn't matter and stuff like that. So I hope that this helps rebound after, like, what seemed like was beginning to become a hurdle.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of 2020 summer TSM when Doublelift had the really bad split on 9th place Team Liquid, went to TSM, rejoined up with Bjergsen. It honestly feels super close to the same for me, where they need to play themselves back into shape. And for that team, like, it didn't turn on until down 0-2 losers bracket of the playoffs before they made their miracle run. So I don't think it's going to get much easier. Like, I think that's their process in a sense. Like, with Doublelift taking 2 years off and reintegrating the system that they've ran to win many championships, like, it's not guaranteed to still work, and they're going to have to fight and refine it, I think, kind of the whole split.
It also is really interesting because we talk about, I think, how volatile playing best of ones is. And we, going into this year, we're like, LCS is super hyped because we have all these really good players coming in. We have these players returning. We have a bunch of really interesting team build exercises and team building, right? And I actually think that giving up some of these losses really hurts now when you look at where the standings are at behind us,
The
right?
loser of that TL 100 Thieves game was going to be alone in 8th.
Yeah.
So now TL is alone in 8th, which is disastrous. Another one I want to point out is EG, even though they're technically tied for 3rd, they did lose both games, and it also comes off the least impressive 3-0 Super Week from Week 4. Like, literally last week they had multiple games that we felt like they should have lost, and we're like, but they won them, and they are EG, so it's fine, but it's not fine?
Yeah.
How worried do you think EG is?
It's hard to say because this is, like, somewhat reminiscent of their spring last year where they were 9-9, and like, they were kind of running it a little bit. You know, you're like, and then they win playoffs, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, some teams get this, like, aura of, like, it's hard to criticize them because you know how talented they are. You've seen them do it before, and if you doubt them, you're going to look dumb in 3 weeks when they're in finals or something.
Right.
And, like, I think they have that trust earned that, like, I'm not quite ready to doubt them, but, like,
Yeah.
You are doubting them. You're just like, I don't want to be.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to speak it into existence. But
And a lot of the concerns we have right now, one in concerning their draft, is literally the same thing we were concerned with in that regular season. So they'll figure it out. It's the drafts, it's mid-game, like basically moments where they int. And it's like, okay, but I know that those things you can get disciplined on and really work at. What works for you in the draft, but also just not putting yourself in poor situations in mid-game. Like, I think they'll get back on it, so I'm not too concerned, but they do need a kick in the butt, and I feel like Golden Guardians is turning out to be that kick.
Hell yeah, tied for third.
There it is.
What is CLG's win rate or win streak? Are they on a streak?
They 2-0'd.
But
So they 2-0, and they 2-1 Super Week with a loss at the end.
Oh,
So they're
broke.
4 of their last 5, but only a 2-game win.
Okay, that's why I was like, are they actually insane? But no, they're not.
They're mid.
They're
What the hell?
Wait, but they have a winning. They're alone in 5th with a winning record. They're good,
Yep.
but they're just not on a streak, so we can't talk about them.
Yeah, okay. MasterCard Player of the Week this week is River.
Bang!
Oh.
River and Gory, for us, was the clear choice. I voted for Gory. I'm not sure what you guys did, but we take the opinions of all of the broadcast talent. So I think both of these are respectable. I hear the vote was 5-4.
Yeah, I
Ooh,
was so.
yeah,
I
it
was
was
a tight
super
one.
close.
Are we all go? Wait, were we?
Wait, we were the Gory.
We were the four?
Wait, we were the
voting
4
block.
Gory side?
Which
That's
means
amazing.
everyone else was the River voting block.
I'll put on my River hat. Okay, I actually do love watching River's early pathing, where he ends up going, because he is and can be so thoughtful about where he is showing up, what the state of his lanes are, the communication between him and this team, because previously when he was on Dig, you would see these moments where he is doing technically the correct thing, but he might not be on the same page with the rest of the team. This seems like such an ideal situation for a jungler as intelligent as River is.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that someone from Golden Guardians was clearly going to win was the strength of their opponents. The fact that they beat them pretty handily. Both EG and C9 was pretty much Golden Guardians winning the entire time. And it was mostly off the back of River and Gory. So it made them 2 very obvious candidates to debate over. You can say maybe Gory, I think, maybe had the better C9 game. I think River had the better EG game. That's why it was so split. Both of them just had an incredible weekend.
Yep, I mean, one person that has to be happy about this is Dom.
Oh, yeah, sure. Right, yeah,
There it is.
fearless.
And it's crazy because the one thing, I'm not even, like, I know we all voted Gory here and then probably had River second.
Yep.
Who's going to be mad at that? Like, River has
not.
been exceptional since coming to North America and has winning lanes. Like, he has lanes in which he can play through. Stixay and who have been great. Him and Gory, we've been singing praises for. So it's like his early pressure is amounting to something. Them clearing vision is turning into, like, legitimate wins. And so they're a strong and dominant team because of River. So we need to see more of that.
Back-to-back Player of the Weeks for Golden Guardians.
True.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stixay River. Prevented Prince from getting one.
Finally.
Yeah, finally.
Oh
Prince
my
doesn't
God.
get his third. I do want to figure out how we can gerrymander an extra electoral vote for the Analyst Lounge.
We need one more.
I think, actually, I would say that we run the biggest risk of just, like, single braining it because we're talking all day off camera, whereas the other groups are all, like, in their little pods.
True.
We are the most dangerous voting block.
Maybe River's the correct one. Let's check out the schedule for next week. Week 6 of the LCS Spring Split starts off with FlyQuest versus CLG, TSM versus EG. That 100 Thieves Cloud9 game is spicy. And the Golden Guardians TL, if they go to 8-4 while knocking TL to 4-8, that's really going to start solidifying these standings. That's a dangerous game.
Those games are all boring. I'm looking at number 5, Dignitas versus
Banger alert!
I've been saying off camera that I actually think there's a realistic chance that Dignitas comes back and rallies a little bit and gets over Immortals. I feel like Dignitas had, like, hit the bottom emotionally, and with the Tomo pickup, have been looking better. Whereas Immortals have looked a little rough in the recent weeks. I actually think Dig's gonna climb over them in the standings, but in the second round robin.
Dude, I gotta say, being here for like 10 hours a day every show day changes the way we see exciting games. Because I
True.
think most people
I think
look
everyone at home is
9
excited
versus
too.
10. I wonder why they put it 5th. Listen, I really want to see
Twitch
what
chat's
happens.
with me. I can see
Entertainment.
Twitch chat now when I close my eyes. They're all just like based Giga chat.
All
That's all I see.
NACL starts tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's it. Week 5 is over. We'll see you in week 6.
Here's your pen.
Thanks,
Oh,
Red.
Get it.
Long range.